Welcome everybody. I'm Katy Wallace, and this is the gut-brain connection video. This will be a two-part series. I'm a naturopathic doctor, and the name of my practice is Human Nature, LLC. This talk is for health education reasons only and should not take the place of medical advice. Part one is going to cover an introduction to what is known about the gut-brain connection. The part two video will focus on 4 main ways to support a healthy gut-brain connection. So gut-brain connection is described as a complex two-way communication between the gut and the nervous system. So signals are sent between the gut and the nervous system and vice versa, and they are sent through something called the vagus nerve and also the enteric nervous system in the gut. Here's a picture of the vagus nerve. It is yellow in this diagram, and you can see how it goes over the throat area. So a lot of things therapeutically that help the vagus nerve and in turn are influenced by the vagus nerve are activities that center around this area of the body. It also goes all the way down into the digestive system. So it's sensing information. It's a way to send messages from the brain to the gut and from the gut back to the brain. The enteric nervous system is pictured here. It's often abbreviated as ENS. You can see along the digestive tract that's pictured, there are these nodes in the drawing where the nerves are pointed out and labeled, and these correspond to parts of the spinal nervous system. And this is another way that the body communicates information from the digestive system to the spine and vice versa. So there are 3 main ways that the gut and the biota, the microbiome in the gut, communicate with the nervous system. Through the vagus nerve and the spinal nerves is the first one that I just talked about and showed you visuals for. The second one is through sending hormones and neurotransmitters, which are hormones made in the nervous system, and things called neuromodulators. These are things made by the gut that then get sent to the brain, and some hormones and neurotransmitters can also be made in the brain and sent to the gut. But mostly it's going from the gut to the brain, we think, or scientists think. Inflammatory chemicals made by immune cells is another very strong way that what is happening in the gut environment influences the brain and the nervous system. The immune cells, when they're activated, make chemicals called pro-inflammatory cytokines. The word cytokine is spelled out here. Cytokines perpetuate inflammation, and so chronic neurological inflammation is not a good thing for the body. And different things can influence this. The level of insulin someone is making based on how many carbohydrates they eat and how sedentary they are. The level of toxins that you might come in contact, food sensitivities, and different allergens in the environment are just examples of things that might aggravate the immune system and perpetuate this major route of influence to cognition in the brain. This is a diagram summarizing what I was just talking about. So you can see pictured here the brain and the nervous system connected to the gut through the vagus nerve and vice versa. If there's dysbiosis or an imbalance in the gut bacteria, then that is going to affect the hormones and neurotransmitters and the immune system community in the gut lining, which is what is pictured here in the corner. That's where a number of the hormones and neuromodulators are made, and those in turn also are a route of communication between the gut and the brain. So there are messages sent from the gut to the brain. When the gut senses a change in food, a change in gut microbes, any kind of irritation really, it in turn can send a signal to the brain that affects our emotions, our appetite, our stress response, for example. Also, the brain can send messages to the gut, like when we're feeling very anxious about a situation, something in the environment, that can affect how our gut is. For example, feeling butterflies in the stomach. Research suggests a strong link between our gut health and our mental health, and this has been linked to anxiety, depression, and stress. And research suggests a strong link between gut health and cognitive decline, like in dementia. Research also shows a strong link between neurodivergent characteristics, such as autism spectrum disorder, and the gut health. This diagram comes from a recent paper that was published this past year, 2024, in the Nature Metabolism journal. And they just did an amazing job of reviewing all of, well, not all, but of a lot of the scientific literature on how diet relates to microbes and how that relates to brain and health and various disorders. So this diagram is from that paper. You can see the gut-brain connection is illustrated, and then all the different neuropsychiatric disorders are arranged around just to show what areas there are research studies showing that there is a strong link between the gut-brain connection and the disorder. So eating disorders, neurodevelopmental disorders, neurodegeneration, addiction, dysfunctional neuronal activities, that'd be like epilepsy or MS, and stress-related disorders like irritable bowel or depression. So now I want to talk to you about just some sampling of the research that scientists have done showing a strong connection between the gut and the brain. This study showed that of children being admitted as new patients to a gastroenterology clinic, that the majority of them had sensory processing issues, showing a strong link between the gut health in children and neurological issues. Sensory processing issues is when someone is very sensitive to one of the senses, like loud noises or lights, that the nervous system can have a difference or a disorder in how it's stimulated by that sensory input. Another paper showed that children with autism spectrum disorders had who had worse scores or reporting worse levels of GI issues. So they've got more upset tummies, constipation, heartburn, things like that. They were more likely to also score worse on feeling irritable, feeling socially withdrawn, having more repetitive behaviors, or feeling hyperactive. This type of connection has been shown in adults too, particularly adults with mild cognitive impairment and those with Parkinson's disease. So in general, adults with these issues are much more likely to report gut issues, and those with gut issues scored much worse overall in their cognitive tests. So related to that, when we look specifically at the gut microbiome, scientists are finding that there's a very different array of organisms in the guts of children and people with autism spectrum disorder, to the level that you could use the gut biome as a predictor for an autism diagnosis, they're saying. So some pretty distinct differences. And that's been shown in some of the other disorders that I talked about. Also, a big thing with gut health has to do with how healthy is the gut lining, how permeable is the gut lining, or how leaky is it. And so this study out of the University of Wisconsin showed that those with Alzheimer's, which is the main form or most common form of dementia in our society, were associated with having higher gut permeability and higher gut inflammation than those who did not have that. And it's been all over the news recently, probably for I don't know, the past several years at least, how the microbial makeup changes how we handle stress. So based on the bacteria in our gut, we can see a relationship with someone having a mental disorder, for example. I liked this figure because it shows the brain, vagus nerve, gut connection, but also has pictured the different things that all impact the gut, just so we can sort of take a step back and realize like how big this scope really is. So our genetics could influence our gut and therefore our gut-brain axis. Our diet certainly plays a big role. Our sleep plays a big role. Our altered gut flora, our gut microbiome, or an infection we might experience alters our gut-brain experience. Toxins, and also what's happening at the mucosal layer. What is happening with our immune system? Are we reacting negatively to the foods we're eating and causing more inflammation along the gut-brain axis? So stay tuned for part 2, where I will talk about ways to support the healthy gut-brain connection.